this one little medication that makes you feel better every day can also impact you in 10, 20, 50 years and what your life looks like. So the reality is 98% of people cannot come off of thyroid medication once they go on. And in fact, they perpetually have that lost function that they need to offset.
You're listening to the Digest This podcast, and I'm your host, Bethany Cameron. What does Ozempic, Hashimoto's, hormone issues, and our digestive system all have in common? Well, today you're going to hear the answer as McCall McPherson joins me in today's conversation all about our thyroid and what hypothyroidism and hyperthyroidism is and how it's all connected to our weight, our digestion, our hormones, and so much more. McCall shares her research in how microdosing Ozempic can help with thyroid issues within just weeks of being on it without the side effects. As you guys know, I am not a fan of Ozempic, so I asked McCall to convince me to change my mind and my view on it. And I cannot wait for you to hear what happened. You guys hear me talk about Fatty 15 all the time on my Instagram because it has 3 times the healthy aging cell benefits of omega-3 fish oils, among other amazing benefits. But more studies are coming out that the C15 fatty acid found in Fatty 15 also has multiple anti-cancer activities by affecting cellular processes like inflammation, proliferation, and cell signaling. Guys, this is huge. If you haven't yet been convinced that Fatty 15 is amazing for your health for its anti-inflammatory properties and anti-aging benefits, the studies and evidence that it has anti-cancer properties should. Fatty 15 is also proven to resist oxidation factors, unlike most fish oil supplements on the market today, which are already rancid by the time they reach the grocery store shelves. Fatty 15 never oxidizes and it's vegan. I take 1 small capsule in the morning and I even got my husband on it. But don't worry, if you can't swallow pills, you can also open up the capsule and sprinkle it on food. So whether you're vegan, don't like the taste of fish oil, or don't want to ingest rancid oils that are commonly found in fish oil supplements, try Fatty 15 to help support and restore your long-term health. And who would I be without offering a discount to the Digest This community? Fatty 15 has graciously given me the ability to offer you 15% off their 90-day subscription starter kit. Just go to fatty15.com/digest and use code DIGEST. And you can cancel anytime. That's FATTY, the number 15.com/digest, or use code DIGEST at checkout. I have a question for you all. What's antibacterial, antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory, contains antioxidants, improves oral health and digestive support, and contributes to wound healing? If you guessed Manuka honey, then you're absolutely right. Every time I talk about Manukora honey from New Zealand on my Instagram, I always get messages from my followers telling me how much they appreciate me introducing this ancient healing honey to them and their family. A little goes a long way, and this honey should be saved for medicinal purposes, not baking into cakes or cookies. It's something I always have in my pantry because it never spoils, ever. And a tiny teaspoon daily is all you need to get the endless benefits both internally and if you apply it externally on your face for breakouts or even burns, its potent healing powers work wonders. Manukora honey contains 3 times more antioxidants than your typical sweetener and the special antibacterial compound called MGO. The higher the MGO count, the more of these antibacterial compounds exist in the honey. It's hard to find Manuka honey with an MGO above 500, but Manukora guarantees an MGO of at least 850. Now it's easier than ever to get Manukora honey. Just head on over to manukora.com/digest to save $70 on their starter kit, which comes with an 850 plus MGO Manukora honey jar, 5 honey travel sticks, a wooden spoon, and a guidebook. That's manukora.com/digest to save $70 plus $25 worth of free gifts. That's manukora.com/digest. All right, McCall McPherson, you are, I want to say, the thyroid queen. I am really excited to talk about all things thyroid today. And before I even get into the conversation, I like to start my podcast with some rapid fire yes or no questions, and you can only answer yes or no. You ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay. First question. Are hormonal imbalances really just a thyroid issue?
No,
Is weight loss intolerance actually a real thing?
people can't lose weight with effort.
Right, like the term weight loss intolerance, is that actually real?
Yes,
Okay. And can you cure thyroid issues by diet alone?
yes,
Interesting. Okay,
some of them.
Okay, yes, caveat there. We can go into the weeds later. Last question. Is Ozempic a drug people with thyroid issues should consider?
Absolutely.
Ooh, interesting. Okay, so McCall, why don't you go ahead, introduce yourself, tell my listeners who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so my name's McCall. It's nice to be here. I'm a PA, I'm a physician assistant and the founder of Modern Thyroid Clinic, which started as a boutique practice in Austin, Texas that deals with complex thyroid disorders. And now we are nationwide simply out of an enormous wait list. And then we also have a sister company named Modern Weight Loss, where we do GLP based medications in microdosing and tailored dosing in very unique ways to harness the advantages without so much of the negative side effects. And my life is kind of dedicated really to women's health and helping people who have been told largely that their thyroid is not their problem, that are plagued with symptoms. And so that's our jam, and we love helping women get their lives back.
I love it. And I really am interested about the whole Ozempic thing because I know there's a lot of mixed feelings and reviews about it. Before we do that, can you give us the Reader's Digest version of what the thyroid does for the body for anyone that doesn't know?
Absolutely. So it's kind of like this master control center. It influences almost every physiological mechanism that we have in our body. So, it influences your metabolism, your hair, your skin, your hormones, your temperature, your digestion, your cholesterol, your blood sugar, your ability even to sweat and think clearly, fertility, mood. Truly, truly, its impact is so far reaching. And I think the biggest thing that I think medicine hasn't figured out yet is even these tiny deviations in thyroid function really compromise those systems. So I love talking about it so more people can be aware, empowered, and know.
I think that it is the quote root cause or a lot of issues that people are experiencing in their body. Like you mentioned, digestion, you mentioned obviously hormones, temperature regulation, like so many different things come from proper or improper thyroid function. Now, can you quickly explain the difference between hypo and hyperthyroidism?
Yeah. Absolutely. So hypothyroidism is low functioning thyroid. It's strange because it usually is caught with an elevation in your thyroid stimulating hormone or your TSH. So sometimes people get it confused, but it leads to everything kind of slowing down, drying up. So you're fatigued, your hair is falling out, your skin is dry, you have no libido, all of those sorts of things. Hyperthyroidism is most commonly involved with an autoimmune condition called Graves. And that's where everything speeds up, increased heart rate, sweating, even palpitations, anxiety. And it's often measured initially by a low TSH. I don't believe either of those things should be diagnosed simply by TSH, but it kind of throws people off because hyper is low TSH and hypo is high TSH. So yeah.
Okay. Now, give us some examples of symptoms if you have hypothyroidism, like the slow moving one.
Yeah. So you just kind of feel heavy, tired. Getting things done during the day is really, really challenging. You oftentimes feel really dry or almost like puffy, swollen. Sometimes you notice that your hair's breaking or falling out. Strangely, even like the outer portion of someone's eyebrows, they start to lose that. They're generally really constipated. They don't have a sex drive. They're apathetic, kind of flat mood, or maybe even a little bit depressed. They struggle to have bowel movements on a consistent basis. Oftentimes they go to their doctor for their yearly checkup and they hear, oh, it looks like your blood sugar is creeping up, or, oh gosh, your cholesterol's high. Maybe we need to put you on Lipitor or something like that. So those are kind of the classic symptoms. Also, they feel cold pretty often, those sorts of things.
Okay. And then some examples of the hyperthyroidism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So often this is noticed first with like feelings of anxiety or trembling. People notice too, they go to the gym and their heart rate gets up to like 150 when they barely do anything, or their resting heart rate that used to be 65 is now like 84. So you see those sorts of changes. They're just sweating a lot, or their hair's getting more greasy. They just feel unsettled, have difficulty sleeping. They too can have hair loss as well. And eventually, honestly, severe hyper can translate into symptoms of hypo, because your body starts trying to get rid of all those excess hormones. And then it honestly manifests a lot like people with low functioning thyroid.
Interesting. Almost like burnout.
Totally.
Oh, okay. So in your practice, what do you see more of? The slow functioning or the overactive?
99 probably percent hypothyroidism. Graves or hyper is actually pretty rare.
Okay.
We do see them, but it's not nearly the quantity as hypo.
Okay. And how does one get thyroid issues in the first place? Like, is it hereditary, or and also what are some ways that we can prevent it from happening if we don't currently have issues?
Great question. So I would hone in on Hashimoto's, because Hashimoto's is an autoimmune condition where your body attacks your thyroid gland. Over time, that attack kind of leaves you with less functioning tissue, just kind of scarring inflammatory tissue. And that accounts for what research says about 80 to 90% of hypothyroidism. Well, Hashimoto's is actually able to be influenced. Like, we can reduce our antibody numbers. We can put it into remission. I myself have been in remission for over a decade. Or we could do lifestyle or make lifestyle efforts to prevent it from happening. And those all kind of line up together. So, you can eat a really clean diet and try not to do processed foods. The most common inflammatory foods I see with Hashimoto's are like dairy is number one and gluten's number two. So eating a diet with low dairy and gluten, high antioxidants to combat inflammation. Hashimoto's is largely influenced and driven by inflammation. If we can influence that, reduce it, we can influence Hashimoto's. Protecting our environment, right? From pollutants, from toxins, putting a really, really high air purifier, like a Jasper or a Molecule, in our bedroom or in our office where we spend the majority of our time. Breathing is one of the most powerful ways that we get toxins into our body, because it goes right into our bloodstream as we inhale them. It's another great way. Not eating out of plastics, not drinking out of plastic water bottles, not putting, highly toxic lotion all over our entire body, using cleaning products, making sure we get adequate micronutrients like selenium. All of these things help to create a buffer for inflammation that can help prevent Hashimoto's. And then, as far as the question as to what's causing it, a lot of things. Genetics are one, right? That's the part we can't change. Functional medicine describes genetics as like genetics load the gun, environment pulls the trigger. So you can still be hardwired genetically for Hashimoto's and still be able to influence your risk. So it's not like the end all be all, but genes are one portion. Stress, inflammation, poor sleep, alcohol, a lot of sugar, those sorts of things increase our risk too for Hashimoto's and therefore hypothyroidism.
Okay. What about overexercising?
Yeah. So overexercising can honestly be one of the most detrimental things that I see in my practice. Those are some of the people I have the hardest time fixing when they're far into that journey and they just keep pushing, thinking they're going to get stronger. So they work out more and more and more and just further deplete their system. Overexercising can very much halt the activation of your thyroid hormones. Your body kind of goes into preservation mode and won't allow them to convert and activate, so that you're tired, so that your body's trying to make you rest, even though you're over exercising. Absolutely. That's a big one.
Okay. Yeah, these are all great. And then all the examples, like, obviously having an air purifier, eating a clean diet, like I think people should be doing all of those things
Yeah.
regardless.
Yeah,
So it's kind of a
absolutely.
no-brainer. But especially obviously if you don't want to get thyroid issues or currently have thyroid issues. Now, what is considered off when looking at a test, right?
Mhm.
Because like I've seen like some doctors are like, oh, you have like maybe a low thyroid, but it's nothing to be concerned about. And could it possibly be the start of, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years later, now you're really low in thyroid and they could have stopped it prior?
I would say by the time someone gets diagnosed in the standard medical approach, the conventional approach with thyroid issues, they've probably actually had a thyroid issue for close to a decade.
Oh
That's
my
how,
gosh.
yeah, no, it's honestly devastating the amount of time people are having to wait for a medical intervention that could not only change their quality of life, but absolutely change the trajectory of their long-term health, because the standard of care at this point right now, what's normal or okay, is so incredibly wide and so flawed in our approach that people are sitting symptomatic, desperate for years and years and years before they're able to finally say, okay, yeah, now we'll treat you. And those are honestly a lot of the people that come to Modern Thyroid Clinic.
Wow. What's the typical in like the Western medicine world? What's a typical treatment if someone is diagnosed with either thyroid condition?
Yeah. So about 90+% of people get put on one class of medication. It's based on a hormone that's inactive called T4. And those are the medications everyone thinks of, like levothyroxine, Tirosint, Unithroid, Levoxyl. And while those work for some people, for a huge percentage of the population, they actually won't ever work because people have a difficult time in a lot of situations due to a lot of things, taking that inactive hormone, that T4, and converting it to the active form that fuels our body called T3. And unfortunately, medicine's approaches give everyone this inactive hormone and hope and assume, really, that they can activate it and convert it, but most people can't. And those are the people that walk around saying, well, I'm on this thyroid medication, but I still have symptoms. And their doctor says, well, no, your medicine's fine. Go on, it's not your thyroid. When in fact, it is their thyroid. They just can't, their physiology is not able to use and access that medication in a real way that's productive for them.
Why is this like more widespread and well known that so many doctors are prescribing medication that's not effective?
Because the instruction comes from the top. Like it comes from the, American Thyroid Association, who, I don't think as a clinician trained in the conventional model, I mean, that's my training formally is the same as everybody else's, right? I don't think medicine in general is invested in evolving thyroid care right now. Like, I just think it's extremely low priority. No one's paying attention. No one cares. Our guidelines haven't been updated for over a decade. So we need an update. I mean, I'm really, really hoping that comes soon. That's a lot of the reason I'm writing a book right now. I want to help evolve that mission because women need it desperately.
Yeah, and it sounds like it's so frustrating to me. And you see this all the time in the medical field where they're not really treating the cause, they're just treating the symptoms. So like thyroid, it's part of so many different functions in your body where they're really just treating those different functions in the body that the thyroid is causing. Does that make sense? So
Oh,
it's
that's like
very
my
frustrating.
passion project. And no one ever brings that up. I love that you do, like that you look at it that way, because even mild, like I mean super mild thyroid issues that medicine would call subclinical, or basically we don't need to treat this, we'll wait kind of a thing, are linked to dementia, infertility, obesity, diabetes, high cholesterol, cancer, all kinds of things. And instead, we're simply like band-aiding dementia, diabetes, infertility, like all of these things instead of tracing it back to this unified source that could influence the trajectory of that person's health in all these other ways too, right?
Right. And you mentioned a lot of people are giving clients or patients T4 medication.
Mm-hmm.
because they can't convert it to T3, wouldn't it just make sense to give them is there a T3 medication? And could that possibly be the issue or the solution?
I like you so much. Like, I love that you're putting all these pieces together in real time, like rapidly.
I feel like it's a
impressive.
no-brainer.
It is a no-brainer, and there are T3-based medications available that are incredibly safe, incredibly effective. Sadly, as clinicians, we are not trained how to use them. We are not trained about the importance of T3 or even what it is. And we're trained to actually be very, very afraid of T3. Our training is, hey, if you put your patients on T3, you're gonna give them a heart attack or a stroke. When in fact, research is so clear, too much T4 increases heart disease risk. Adequate amounts of T3 reduces heart disease risk, reduces mortality from heart disease. But we just sort of generationally sometimes in medicine pass down almost these old wives' tales, and they just carry on. And that's what's happening in the world of thyroid. So no one uses T3, no one knows how to use it, and they're all terrified of it.
Wow. Okay. So I have heard that thyroid medication, in particular T3, if you don't get it from a compounding pharmacy, they contain ingredients that you don't want to be putting in your body. So is it safe to say that you do want to go to a compounding pharmacy, or is the generic T3 okay?
Interesting. I wonder what those ingredients are. Like, I've never heard that. So I do the opposite. I won't use T3 from a compounding pharmacy, mainly because, and this is an interesting thing. So when I use compounding pharmacies every day with my patients, I send hormones there, progesterone, for example, estrogen. Those are all measured in milligrams. Thyroid hormones are measured in micrograms, and it's very hard to get a consistent amount of micrograms in each individual dose. When you're dealing with milligrams, it's like baking a dozen muffins and putting even amounts of blueberries in every muffin. Kind of doable. When you're dealing with micrograms, it's baking a dozen muffins and getting an even amount of poppy seeds in every one. It's incredibly difficult. T3 is extraordinarily potent, so you don't want those fluctuations in dosing. You want it very, very tightly controlled.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that does make sense for sure. Now, I do want to get into this whole Ozempic thing because what's the deal? Because I'm personally not a fan of Ozempic, but I obviously hear you are. So convince me to change my mind about this drug and how it can help.
I like you. Okay. So I also love that we get to have this conversation, like in the context of, hey, you're not a fan of this. Tell me what your thoughts are, Okay. So Ozempic, I started using, or GLP-based medications in my thyroid patients because there is a huge subset of people with hypothyroidism that cannot lose weight with effort. And I mean serious effort, way more than any human should be putting in to lose 5, 10, 20 pounds. And they can't do it because their metabolism is damaged. It's dysfunctional from years of hypothyroidism. So I initially started it with an open mind then and gathering a bunch of data on my patients during our weight loss process, okay? I figured out really, really quickly, these meds are great for weight loss, but a couple things. Number one, people are over-medicated and it's causing side effects and poor outcomes, okay? I think dosing that we are using that came from diabetics is way too high. People should not start on that dosing. They shouldn't be perpetually increasing that dosing. They should be in microdoses and tailored to them specifically. So when you eliminate the standard dosing protocols, you don't get rapid weight loss. You don't get muscle loss. You don't get hair loss. You don't get gallbladder, pancreatic issues, okay? All of those side effects, the side effects we hear about online are largely due to rapid weight loss and undernourishment. When people aren't so appetite suppressed, they eat healthy food, they eat enough protein, they eat enough micronutrients. So all of that aside, in the end, GLPs, in my opinion, an added side effect that they provide is weight loss. They do so much more than that. Single-handedly, they are the most powerful thing I've ever seen as a clinician who practices functional medicine. They are the most powerful thing I've ever seen for inflammation. So in about 48 hours, they significantly reduce inflammation. Objectively, after one microdose injection, I have seen patients' CRP, an inflammatory marker that's linked to death, heart disease, et cetera, come down after one microdose shot in 1 week. So they're also studied For, cancer benefits, a 69% reduction in pancreatic cancer, 37% reduction in colorectal cancer. Reductions are also seen in breast cancer, ovarian cancer, and that's just scratching the surface. They reduce autoimmune disease because they reduce inflammation consistently, almost ubiquitously. They reduce Hashimoto's antibodies, but they've also been shown to reduce the progression of MS in every measurable category, improve psoriatic arthritis. They reverse metabolic dysfunction. So people who couldn't eat well, exercise, lose weight, go on it temporarily, reverse their metabolic dysfunction, and then they can eat well, exercise, and lose weight, even off of the medication. So I think these meds get such a bad rap. And I think in part, it's true, but I think the poison is in the dose. If we, on clinicians' part, do our job better, people can get tremendously positive outcomes with little to no negative outcomes.
Interesting. Well, you mentioned inflammation. Where in the body, just overall, or gut inflammation, or what are you saying?
Absolutely everywhere. Studies show reduction in gut inflammation. It improves your gut microbiome. It increases good bacteria. It decreases bad bacteria. It crosses the blood-brain barrier to reduce neuroinflammation. So it can slow the progression of Parkinson's. I think it will be a future treatment of Alzheimer's prevention and progression. Joint inflammation dissolves to a huge degree in a very short period of time, and it's been shown to slow the progression of RA and OA, rheumatoid arthritis and osteoarthritis. I found 4 pathways so far in research of inflammatory reduction. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Everyone is talking about the matcha lattes at those big chain coffee shops and how it's the best thing ever. But when I look at the ingredients in the matcha powder, the first ingredient is sugar, followed by a laundry list of other ingredients, and somewhere way down the ingredient list is sprinkled matcha powder. Coffee shops aren't the only ones serving up sugary green matcha. Even matcha latte powder you can buy at the store or online are filled with just that, fillers, not to mention sugar, and if not sugar, stevia, monk fruit, or some other weird 0-calorie sweetener that makes the drink taste like a science experiment and your body feel bloated, wired, and tired all at the same time. Enter Peak's Sun Goddess Matcha, an organic ceremonial superfood blend that redefines your daily ritual. Crafted from the purest tea leaves, it provides a smooth, sustained energy for a calm mind and a radiant glow. This ceremonial grade matcha is 100% organic and grown in a pristine valley, ensuring you get the cleanest, purest cup every time. And since Peak Tea triple toxin screens their matcha, you can be assured it's free from mold, mycotoxins, glyphosate, pesticides, and any other harmful chemicals commonly found in your typical matcha green tea powder. And because their matcha is ceremonial grade, aka the top, most freshest, greenest, and brightest grade out there, it's packed with powerful antioxidants that work to firm and brighten your skin, giving you a healthy, natural glow. It really does help rejuvenate you from the inside out. I personally noticed a difference in my skin when I switched my cup of joe to matcha last month because I was experiencing a pretty intense breakout that I normally don't experience during my cycle. And this matcha never inflamed my skin or caused irritation to the issue, only supported the healing and clearing process. So give the gift of glowing health this holiday season, not just to your loved ones, but to yourself. Unlock 20% off for life for yourself and everyone on your list. Get started at peaklife.com/digest. That's PIQUE life.com/digest. peaklife.com/digest. I pour my heart and soul into this podcast, my Instagram and social media outlets, and put so much sweat and tears into creating the Bethany's Pantry line of digestive support powders and supplements. My protein contains no stevia, no monk fruit, no gums, fillers, no natural flavors, or gut irritants. It's made with pure European yellow pea protein, where we even take the extra step into removing the lectins, which are the anti-nutrients found in peas and legumes, and often what makes people bloated when consuming them. That's why countless people come back and tell me that my protein is the only protein powder they can consume without any digestive discomfort. And because we source our pea protein from Europe, I can assure you it's not sprayed with glyphosate, because it's actually illegal in Europe to spray pea crops with such chemicals. Europe's standards and regulations on growing crops are far superior than American standards, and that's why I am proud to use such a source for my clean, easy to digest protein powder. The testimonies I receive are so inspiring and quite emotional from those dealing with Crohn's, colitis, IBD, IBS, and related gut issues. So thank you for your continued support to my mission to provide cleaner options for those needing alternative sources for their health. And to express my gratitude, I want to offer everyone a one-time $10 off discount. Just go to Bethany'sPantry.com and use code podcast10 for $10 off anything. Again, go to Bethany'sPantry.com and use code podcast10 for $10 off anything. This is a one-time use code, so use it wisely. That's insane. So what about all the side effects? Just because I've, looked into this because of everyone's
Doing it.
almost like one-sided. I mean, I've never done it. I don't need to do it, but I've noticed and I've seen online people are getting, just after 3 months of Ozempic, they have osteoporosis, eye loss, kidney damage, pancreatitis, hypoglycemia, gastrointestinal issues. Are these side effects coming from a very high dose?
And undernourishment, right? So those two things combined, high dose equals no food intake, right? Or, there are people who eat 200, 400 calories a day. They're so nauseous. All they're eating is carbohydrates. I'm not kidding. That's not even the exception. Probably 800 calories or less, I would estimate to be the rule, not the exception. These people can't eat food because they're so full all the time, because the medicine is so high dosed that literally almost every one of those side effects that you just listed, I think, is eradicated with microdosing and dosing that's tailored for each individual patient.
Interesting. So can someone get these side effects that I just listed from microdosing?
I have never seen that, and I would venture to say no. Even vision loss is due to rapid blood pressure changes that happen when people rapidly lose weight and the clinician isn't paying attention. And obviously people with diabetes, et cetera, are already at an increased risk for vision loss, but that's due to that. Pancreatitis is due to rapid weight loss. Gallbladder issues, same. Gastroparesis, they have weeks, months of warning of constipation that no one's doing anything about. They need to reduce their dose back down to ensure that their bowels are moving so they don't move into a gastroparesis type state. And I think medicine is going to move that way. I think it's inevitable, but right now we're in this in-between where we are trying to put everyone on a diabetic's dose of these medications, and it's just way too much.
Wow. Now, I've also heard that thyroid C-cell tumors can come from Ozempic.
Can we
What's
talk about
the deal?
that?
Yeah.
So obviously I'm extraordinarily invested in this conversation, right? And for years, and we still offer this, I made my patients on GLPs get a thyroid ultrasound every 3 months so that I could track risk. And the risk was said initially to happen in the first year to 2 years of this increased risk in thyroid cancer. It's never happened, but let's talk about the data and the reason these drugs carry a black box warning for medullary thyroid carcinoma. When they were doing the trials in rats, they put rats who have incredibly dense GLP receptors specifically on their thyroid, meaning their thyroid's going to receive this medication in a big way. They put rats on 20 to 100 times the human equivalent dose. So that combined with a lot of GLP receptors on their thyroid that humans don't have that same density led to an increased risk of a very rare form of medullary thyroid carcinoma, which is one of the most rare forms of thyroid cancer. That risk, then the FDA said, okay, we're going to put a black box warning on these drugs for that because it's manifesting in these rats. 50 human trials have been done on this exact topic. There is no increased risk for medullary thyroid carcinoma or multiple endocrine neoplasia with GLPs. Full stop, period. In fact, one study said that insulin carries more of a risk for thyroid cancer than GLPs, and insulin does not, in fact, carry a risk for thyroid cancer. So it's something that is happening with GLPs. The media sort of latches on to these fear topics and then just cycles through it and scares everyone. And then they'll go move to another one, cycle through. But no one's having the other part of that conversation, which the data is clear on in so many of these cases that the fear is not valid. Of course, like I wouldn't personally put someone with a history on medullary thyroid carcinoma on a GLP, but I've treated hundreds of people with a thyroid cancer history with it successfully. And sometimes those people need it even more than others.
It's so interesting because there's so much conflicting information out there. And again, like you said, a lot of the media likes to fearmonger either one way or the other. And I'm like wondering who's like behind this, right? Like
Yeah.
I don't even know the health insurance people. Like, I don't even know.
That's the only thing I could come up with. Cause I'm like, I've sat back for years watching this narrative. I get studies in my inbox every day on GLPs. Any study that comes out, I get sent to me in my email and I read them most days, right? Sometimes obviously I fall behind, but while all this narrative is going around in the world, I'm like, who is driving this narrative? Like, who is to benefit from this? Because it's crazy. Like, meanwhile, the biggest thing that will happen in medicine in my lifetime is occurring in front of all of us. And I really think that these drugs are that. But all we're talking about is all this fear-based rare side effects stuff. And the only thing I can come up with is insurance companies because they are spending millions, billions of dollars on these drugs every year that, people are saying people need to be on them forever. And they're losing money hand and fist. And that's the only thing I can come up with. Otherwise, I have no idea.
Interesting. Okay, so what would you do? Like, obviously, if someone comes into your office, maybe they don't want to go on Ozempic. They're just like, they've already made up their mind. What other options would you give them?
Yeah. So obviously lifestyle. For me, lifestyle is always number one. And I think Ozempic GLPs are a great option for people that can't achieve the proper outcome with effort, right? But lifestyle, like eating a diet that's whole foods, nutrient dense, lots of antioxidants, enough protein, right? And low inflammatory, and doing it in a way that propagates low blood sugar, low insulin. So part of what protects our long-term health, makes us feel good every day and protects us from disease is having an intact metabolism, sensitive insulin, sensitive leptin. We don't want insulin and leptin resistance, balanced blood sugar, balanced cholesterol. And as we age, we kind of can start to lose that battle. We lose that footing and we have to do more to maintain our weight and more. And that is because of insulin resistance, leptin resistance. So keeping those things sensitive and setting up your life to do so, or the way that you eat, the way that you exercise. There's a few key things that you can do to maintain that very well that work for some people. Obviously, people that are really, really metabolically disadvantaged, it might not work.
Okay. What about other medication? Like, what if you just put them on a T3, right? And not Ozempic, say, okay, here's a T3. Would that help the situation or not really?
Good question. So I think a lot of people are overweight or obese because they have hypothyroidism or low T3. But I want you to kind of visualize this. Let's say someone comes to see us at Modern Thyroid Clinic 10 years into their thyroid journey, okay? And they have low T3. We put them on T3. That's amazing. It'll start to improve long-term health outcomes, certainly, but they have 10 years of worsening metabolic function. They have insulin resistance, leptin resistance, high blood sugar. When I balance their T3, all of that isn't reversed. We have to unravel that dysfunction, and it takes sometimes years and years and years and years. It is incredibly hard to reverse, even with really great effort. So that's the thing. It's not like magically fixing someone's T3 is going to allow them to all of a sudden lose all of this weight that they've accumulated over time.
Okay. And what's a typical time? And I know this is a hard question to answer, but someone comes in, how long do they have to be on these GLP-1s or T3 medication before they can start to see some results or feel better?
I mean, T3, people generally feel better in their first, like they meet with their clinician and they begin to feel better within days, weeks. Like it's not where they'll be in the long term. But what's crazy is these people, it's so sad, honestly, they suffer for so long. And if you just get in the hands of the right clinician, your life can turn around and begin to turn around so incredibly quickly. So I would say with T3 with thyroid symptoms, right away. Like for most people, 90+% feel better after their first treatment cycle.
And
GLPs.
what's
No, go ahead.
considered a treatment cycle? Like what, a
Yeah,
bottle of medication or like a couple days on it?
good question. So this is a little nuance, but when they come to see us, like a patient comes to see me, when I put them on T3, I increase them in small microscopic doses over a month. So I give them instructions like days 1 through 5, you're going to take a half a pill in the morning. Days 6 through 10, you're going to do half in the morning, half in the afternoon. And that treatment cycle is 1 month of increasing meds and 2 months of stabilizing. So it's about 3 months. But for that first month, every time they increase their meds, people generally feel better and better and better. And then while they're stabilizing, they continue to feel good. They come back and then we restart the next treatment cycle.
Okay. Okay. And then you were going to say something about the GLPs?
Yeah. And with GLPs, it's interesting. So there's a differential. Like I'm an inflamed person. A lot of my patients are inflamed people. After their first injection, even of a microdose of a GLP, they feel less inflamed within like 48 hours. People generally lose a lot of that puff that they're holding on to that's inflammatory water weight, which also makes you feel better, not like physically in terms of how you view yourself, but you're less toxic. That lymphatic system's moving, it's taking out the trash. So they generally feel better really quickly. With microdosing, weight loss is slower. Honestly, that's the goal. People are losing too much weight too fast. So from a weight loss perspective, it's just sort of this slow build, but symptomatically, people feel remarkably better in the first week as well.
Wow. Excuse me. Okay. So if you are currently on thyroid medication, or maybe you're about to get on it or whatever, do you have to be on it for life? Or at some point, can you get off of it?
Yeah, good question. So I get this question a lot. And this is very in vogue in like the social media world right now. Like people are like, oh, I got off my thyroid medication. I'll help you get off yours. And that's a dangerous game because the vast majority of people who are on thyroid medication have lost actual tissue of their thyroid gland that's no longer functioning from Hashimoto's, from slow breakdown over time as we age, which is also a real issue. And so even if I wave a magic wand and I put their Hashimoto's, their autoimmune disease, into remission, like me, I'm in remission, that doesn't mean they don't need thyroid medication. I had Hashimoto's for 12 years before I, put it into remission. Over those 12 years, my thyroid gland, a lot of it got destroyed, right? So I have to offset the loss of thyroid gland that is non-functional. And that's so important because kind of like we talked about earlier, it influences all of these long-term health outcomes. So when people get really, really excited about coming off of their thyroid medication, I'm like, I want you to think about if you come off your thyroid medication, you're not in a good range, but your doctor's like, oh, you're okay. You can just carry on without it. You're going to develop diabetes. You're going to develop weight gain, increased risk for dementia, cancer, Alzheimer's, osteoporosis, osteopenia. So this one little medication that makes you feel better every day can also impact you in 10, 20, 50 years and what your life looks like. So the reality is 98% of people cannot come off of thyroid medication once they go on. And in fact, they perpetually have that lost function that they need to offset.
Interesting. Okay. Now, I've heard, like, I know you've talked about diet and all of that. Now, there's a lot of confusion about iodine supplements and the thyroid. And some say that it helps, and others say that iodine supplements can actually negatively affect the thyroid gland. So, what's the deal?
Yeah. So, at one point in time, a lot of us were iodine deficient. We iodized our salt. We made some changes. Most people are not walking around deficient in iodine now. It's not a real issue. In fact, most of us, many of us have too much iodine in our physiology, and increases in iodine, increased risk for autoimmune thyroiditis, so Hashimoto's, Graves', that kind of thing. So in fact, I do not supplement my patients with iodine. And if someone has Hashimoto's and they're really, really stuck, their antibodies won't drop anymore, and we've done diet, lifestyle, supplements, all these things, sometimes if I remove iodine from their diet, their antibodies will substantially drop again. So it's a way that you can reverse autoimmunity by removing iodine. It's complete opposite of what people thought 10 or 15 years ago.
Interesting. Okay. What about soy? Is soy a no-go if you have thyroid issues?
Soy is totally in the top 5 most inflammatory foods for thyroid, for sure.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you have thyroid issues, no soy, no tofu, no soy sauce.
And it's hard because, and I think soy sauce is like something we use in a small amount on occasion. It's hard because there's no differential in testing like high quality soy, like, tempeh, et cetera, or like GMO soy that's just ridden with pesticides. So in my data I can't differentiate those two, but in the data I have, soy is definitely in the top 5.
Yeah, I've done some research on soy too, and it's interesting because, in fact, a lot of the good quality soy, obviously organic and all of that, can be very beneficial for women's hormones. And it's interesting because it's great for one thing because people are taking it for their hormones, but also the thyroid is connected to your hormones. So it's a little bit like, okay, what do I do here?
Yeah. No, it is. And, that's why I kind of feel like, look, like most things, high quality and balance, were probably pretty good, with the exception of like highly processed foods that serve us absolutely no value, of course. But like most other things that are whole foods, a lot of us can tolerate them in small amounts.
Yeah, I think that that's true too. Like the dose could definitely make the poison because too much of anything, like you can have too much water, and you can have too much anything that's good for you. Now, I do have a question because I have heard that even children can have thyroid issues. Now, what would you do if a patient came in and they're like, look, my daughter or my son, I think they have thyroid issues, and comes out that they do. How would you treat a child?
Yeah. Similar, I would treat an adult, but I would try to find ways because when kids have Hashimoto's or hypothyroidism, excuse me, most of the time it's because they have significant and severe Hashimoto's. They're in an autoimmune state. And when it's present in kids, that's usually of like exponential severity, honestly. And the way that we influence those antibodies is by a lot of lifestyle work. And that's hard for kids. It really is. I feel bad for them. But we try to do things where we can influence it in a positive way without so much work on them. Things like low-dose naltrexone or LDN to reduce inflammation can be incredibly powerful. I remember one kid, he was like a swimmer, an elite swimmer. But every year when he went into season for swimming and swam for so many hours every day, all the chlorine would get in his system and it would crazy flare his Hashimoto's. So we would try to work on ways to get the chlorine out. It's kind of like looking and figuring out what can we influence in your body that's possibly driving this in a way that's sustainable for you, while also treating them with medication. Because honestly, when they have severe Hashimoto's, they've lost some of that thyroid gland. And with kids, they don't know how they feel. They don't know they can't pay attention in school because they have brain fog and their thyroid isn't working. They don't even know that they're tired. They're so not tuned into how they feel. So it's a little bit more challenging, but so rewarding. You can completely just transform these kids' lives.
Yeah. And I feel like that's it's totally frustrating because the children really don't have anything else to compare to. They don't have like a past, decade to be like, oh, well, I was feeling this way and now I'm not. It's just how they are.
Totally. And they accept that so much that it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. You'll look at their labs and they're horrible. And they're like, well, I think I feel okay. And there's no way that you feel okay. You poor thing. You just have no idea what you're supposed to feel like.
Yeah. And why would a child have thyroid issues because it's so new? Would it be more like hereditary?
Exactly. Yeah. Usually when kiddos have it, it's usually hereditary. Often it's hereditary even from the dad's side. When dads have Hashimoto's or autoimmune thyroid issues, it's usually, in my experience, pretty genetic. Like I tell them to screen their children really early on. For some reason, that gene carries more weight because I think it's underexpressed in men. Men generally don't get autoimmune thyroid issues, but when they do, they tend to pass them down to their kids.
Interesting. And would the symptoms be the same as adults if you think your child has thyroid issues?
It's difficult because the kid can't come to you and say, I don't feel as energetic. It goes back to that same thing where they just adapt and carry on. It's almost like parents have to notice, well, hey, my kid isn't doing well in school. The teacher's saying he's slow to finish his work. He's not finishing his test. He's getting less good grades. He doesn't want to go play with his friends on the weekend as much. He seems a little more, alone, recovering more. And then sometimes you can see a little goiter, which is this swollen thyroid gland here that honestly just looks like a little fat pad. Sometimes the only thing you can notice is there's a little crease right here because it's sticking out so much. And that's one telltale sign of a Hashimoto's or a goiter in kids too, that parents can look out for. But for kids, it's tough. It's parents have to kind of be attuned to notice.
Yeah. Okay. So for kids or adults, how does one get tested or diagnosed with thyroid conditions? Is it more like blood work or is it ultrasounds?
It is blood work for sure. And the standard approach with traditional medicine's blood work is not enough. So it's TSH and maybe TSH plus T4. That is not enough to rule out thyroid conditions. We have to check T3, your most important hormone, which research shows is only checked 4% of the time. And largely that 4% is exclusively in the offices of functional medicine providers. So if patients go to their provider and they won't check a full panel, which is TSH, free T4, free T3, reverse T3, and antibodies, TPO and thyroglobulin, patients can largely in our country order their own lab work, go to a lot of different labs so that they can be educated and empowered and actually get the real information that they need. And I can share with you, I have a free thyroid lab guide that tells people, look, these are the labs you need. These are the optimal ranges, not normal, because you can be basically on disability and be in a quote normal range by standard approach. So people still need to be in that driver's seat of their health and their thyroid care because we cannot passively sit back and expect the clinicians we see to navigate it well.
Thank you, McCall, because I'll be sure to put that chart in today's show notes so people can go to it, because I think a really big frustration in my mind is for any lab work, they grade on a curve where it's like you're in the quote normal range because everyone is not
sick.
Everyone is sick. Thank you. Like it's like, oh, well, everyone has diabetes, but you're normal, even though you have diabetes because everyone has it. So you're normal. Like, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. The way that lab markers determine what's normal for thyroid too, there is no standardized range. Like there is no one size one size fits all accepted range. Every lab's definition of normal is different, and it's just taken by their population within their lab database. They create averages from that, and they determine what's normal. So essentially, if you think about it, we are creating our normal ranges from people going to the lab, who's going to the lab, not people who feel so great they want to know what their thyroid function looks like and they're going to take off work to go down to the lab and get it checked. No, these are sick people looking for answers to their own health problems. And now we're basing the average and what should be normal on a collection of those sick people, which is ludicrous, and that's why so many people continue to have thyroid symptoms and they're told that their labs are normal and it's not good enough.
Where can people find you if they want to reach out to you? Do you do online if someone's not in your area?
Yeah. So our goal with Modern Thyroid Clinic is that every single person in the country can access real thyroid care. And so we are nationwide telemedicine practice at this point. We're waiting on like 3 states that are pending still, but otherwise we're in all 50 states. You can find out more at modernthyroidclinic.com, and then modernweightloss.com is our sister company. And I love to hang out on TikTok at McCall McPherson, Instagram at McCall McPherson PA. And I actually have my own podcast, Modern Thyroid and Wellness, where we kind of go deep because it's hard in like content, 3-minute snippets to give people the information that they deserve.
Yeah. Well, I'll be sure to put all of those links in today's show notes. So if you're listening today, go to today's show notes, and then you can find McCall and all of her resources and outlets and social media and all that stuff there. So thank you so much for coming on today. I think this was super educational, and I hope that it broadened people's spectrum and mindset of what some therapies are for thyroid issues.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a wonderful conversation.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Digest This. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review in your podcast app to let us know. If you're ever wondering how you can support me and this podcast, sharing it with your friends and family is the best way. This is a Wellness Loud production produced by Drake Peterson and edited by Mike Fry. To check out more shows by my team, go to wellnessloud.com, and to email the show, message us at digestthispod@gmail.com. See you next time. The content of this show is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not a substitute for individual medical and mental health advice and does not constitute a provider-patient relationship. As always, talk to your doctor or health team first.
Are you looking to reclaim your health? Tune into the Real Foodology podcast, hosted by me, Courtney Swan, integrative nutritionist and real food activist. I am on a mission to transform our food system by challenging the corrupt practices that undermine our health and replace them with choices that genuinely support our well-being. Listen to Real Foodology podcast on your favorite podcast app. New episodes every Tuesday.